Every great story has a secret. And in the case of Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir, that secret was not just another headline for gossip magazines, not just a rumor whispered in the corridors of television studios. It was something far more intimate, something hidden deep within Can's heart, something that for years he never dared to share. On the surface, everything seemed like a fairy tale. Two young stars, both incredibly talented, both beautiful, brought together by fate and by a series that would change their lives forever. Fans fell in love with them instantly. The chemistry was undeniable, too real to be only acting. Every scene between them carried a spark that no script could capture. When Demet laughed at one of Can's improvised jokes, it felt authentic. When Can looked into her eyes a moment too long, viewers around the world noticed. And when their characters kissed, people didn't see actors performing, they saw two souls colliding. But what the public didn't know was that away from the flashing cameras, something even more powerful was happening. Can, who had always been careful with his emotions, found himself wanting to do something unforgettable for Demet. He wanted to capture what he felt in a way that words could never express. So he prepared a gift. Not just a random present, not just flowers or jewelry like the tabloids often speculated, but something deeply symbolic, something that carried a part of his soul. And yet, he never gave it to her. Why? Because timing is everything. Because sometimes fear silences us more than courage drives us. Because once you give something so meaningful, you can never take it back. So Can kept it hidden, locked away like a secret only he knew. Years passed. Life went on. Demet and Can moved forward, their paths twisting in different directions. But destiny has a cruel habit of circling back. And one day, when everything seemed settled, when the world thought their story had ended, Demet discovered the truth. She found out about the gift, the one Can had hidden, the one that had remained untouched for so long. And in that moment, memories that had been buried came rushing back. Questions resurfaced. Why had he kept it from her? What would have changed if she had known back then? Could things between them have turned out differently? Every unforgettable story begins with a first meeting, and for Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir, that meeting would become the spark of a connection that neither of them, nor their millions of fans, could ever ignore. It was the summer of casting calls, production meetings, and endless discussions in smoky offices where producers argued over who would bring their next project to life. At the time, Can was already making waves. His presence was magnetic, tall, charismatic, and with a confidence that filled any room he walked into. But behind the sharp suits and easy smile was someone searching for something more, someone craving a deeper connection than the shallow glamour that often surrounded him. Demet, on the other hand, was a rising star with a different kind of energy. She had a light in her eyes that made people stop and stare, a mix of innocence and determination that made her stand out from the crowd. Directors loved her adaptability, how she could shift from playful to serious in a single heartbeat. But those who worked closely with her knew that she carried a vulnerability, a softness that she often tried to hide behind her strong personality. When their names first appeared together on the casting sheets, some producers hesitated. Could these two very different energies blend into something believable? No one could predict what would happen when they stood face to face for the very first time. And then, the audition day arrived. The room was buzzing with tension. Dozens of assistants moved around, cameras were being tested, scripts shuffled nervously in the hands of young interns. Can walked in with his usual calm confidence, greeting everyone with his trademark charm. Moments later, Demet entered, her presence instantly shifting the energy in the room. When their eyes met, there was a silence, brief but undeniable. Those present would later describe it as a pause, as if even time itself had leaned in to watch what would unfold. The scene they read together was simple, a moment of playful banter between two characters who were destined to fall in love. But as they exchanged lines, something extraordinary happened. Their laughter didn't sound scripted, their gazes lingered longer than the dialogue required, and for a few moments, the line between fiction and reality blurred completely. By the end of that reading, the decision was made. It wasn't just that they looked good together, or that they could act their roles convincingly. It was that intangible thing, the chemistry, the invisible thread pulling them closer, that made everyone in the room agree, this was the pair that would captivate millions. What no one realized that day was that the sparks flying in that audition weren't only for the cameras. Beneath the professional smiles and polite handshakes, something real had begun to stir. Something that neither of them could admit, not yet. And it was in those first few weeks of filming that the foundations of their bond were laid. Early mornings on set turned into inside jokes, late-night rehearsals into shared confidences. Each day, they discovered a little more about one another. Can saw Demet's strength hidden beneath her laughter, and Demet discovered a gentleness in Can that the world rarely got to see. The cameras rolled, the world watched, and the story of their characters unfolded. But behind the curtain, in those quiet stolen moments between takes, another story was silently being written. One that would eventually lead to that secret gift Can would keep hidden for years. By the time the cameras stopped rolling and the first episodes hit the screen, something extraordinary had happened. Can Yaman and Demet Özdemir had become the couple everyone was talking about. Their show wasn't just another romantic comedy, it was the phenomenon. Overnight, they went from rising actors to household names. Fans dissected every look, every touch, every improvised smile, convinced that what they were seeing wasn't acting at all. And maybe the fans weren't wrong. Because away from the cameras, Can found himself experiencing something he had never planned for. He was used to being admired, used to being in control, but with Demet it was different. She had a way of breaking through his defenses, sometimes with nothing more than a glance or a laugh. And while the world speculated about whether their on-screen romance had crossed into real life, Can was busy hiding something that no one knew about. He wanted to give her something. Something real, something that would prove what his words could not. But it wasn't the kind of gift you buy in a jewelry store or pick up from a designer boutique. No, this was different. This was personal. It carried meaning. It carried his heart. Can spent weeks planning it, quietly and carefully, making sure no one around him noticed. To his colleagues and friends, he looked the same, professional, focused, easygoing. But inside, he was carrying a secret weight, the anticipation of one day giving Demet the gift he had chosen for her. But here's the thing about secrets. The longer you keep them, the heavier they become. Each time he thought of giving it to her, something stopped him. Maybe it was the fear that she wouldn't understand, or worse, that she would. Maybe it was the knowledge that once the gift was given, there would be no turning back. That gesture would change everything between them, shattering the fragile balance they were trying to keep while the world's eyes were on them. So Can hid it. He tucked it away, carried it with him silently, never letting it see the light of day. To Demet, he gave his smile, his support, his laughter on set. But the one thing that could have revealed the depth of his feelings remained locked away, a secret between him and his own heart. The irony was almost cruel. For while the world believed they saw every detail of their story, the most important piece remained invisible. A gift that could have changed the course of their relationship, a gesture that might have answered every unspoken question, was left unspoken, unseen. And yet, destiny doesn't keep secrets forever. One day, years later, Demet would discover what he had hidden. And when she did, it wouldn't just be a revelation. It would be a wound reopened, a reminder of what could have been. Every fairy tale, no matter how magical, eventually faces its shadow. For Can and Demet, the beginning had been electric, filled with laughter on set, playful glances, and stolen moments that seemed to confirm what millions of fans already believed, they were more than just co-stars. But with success came pressure. With fame came endless rumors. And with so many eyes watching, even the smallest misunderstanding could grow into something impossible to ignore. At first, it was subtle. The way conversations grew shorter, the pauses between their words a little heavier. On set, they remained professional, always smiling for the cameras, always giving the audience the perfect version of their story. But behind the curtain, something had shifted. Nights that had once been filled with long talks and quiet confessions turned into silence. Calls went unanswered. Messages were left unread. No one around them could say exactly when it happened, but the distance grew. Some whispered about jealousy, others about ambition, and a few believed the constant spotlight had simply become too much. Whatever the reason, the result was undeniable. Two people who had once seemed inseparable now stood on opposite sides of an invisible wall. For Can, the secret gift became heavier than ever. Each time he thought of giving it to her, it felt less possible. What once might have been a symbol of love now felt like a reminder of everything unsaid. He kept it locked away, convincing himself that one day the right moment would return, that silence would turn back into laughter. But the longer he waited, the further Demet drifted. Demet, too, carried her own unspoken questions. She wondered why Can seemed distant, why the warmth in his eyes had dimmed. She tried to focus on her career, on her future, but the absence of what they once shared was impossible to ignore. She didn't know about the gift. She didn't know that he was still holding on to something that belonged to her, even if she had never seen it. And so, their story entered its quietest chapter. To the world, they were simply busy actors moving on with their lives, each chasing new projects, new dreams. But for those who looked closely, there was a sadness in their smiles, a weight in their silences. It was as if they had both chosen to lock away their feelings, just as Can had locked away that gift. What neither of them knew was that silence does not last forever. Secrets do not stay hidden. And sometimes, the very thing we try hardest to bury is the thing that finds its way back to the surface when we least expect it. Time has a strange way of rewriting stories. What once feels urgent and impossible to forget slowly fades into the background, until one day you look back and wonder if it was all just a dream. For years, Can and Demet went their separate ways. New projects, new faces, new headlines, life pushed them forward. To the world, it seemed their chapter had closed long ago. But destiny has its own timing. One evening, long after their names had stopped being written side by side in the tabloids, Demet found herself in a quiet place, far from the chaos of cameras and interviews. A close friend, someone who had once been part of their world during those golden years, brought up something almost casually. A detail, a whisper from the past. "You know," the friend said, "he once prepared something for you. Something he never gave." At first, Demet didn't understand. What could they mean? A forgotten letter? A lost gift from a fan? But the more the friend spoke, the clearer it became. They were talking about something else. Something personal. Something from Can. Her heart skipped a beat. She listened as the pieces came together. The late nights when Can had seemed distracted, the quiet moments when he had wanted to say something but held back, the way his eyes sometimes carried a weight she couldn't name. Suddenly, it all made sense. He had been hiding something from her. And then, the truth was laid bare. The gift, carefully chosen, deeply personal, never revealed, had been waiting all those years. Hidden, silent, untouched. Demet froze. A rush of emotion stormed inside her, shock, sadness, anger, and a deep ache she couldn't control. Why hadn't he told her? Why had he kept it locked away when it might have changed everything? Her mind raced back to those days on set, to the moments when she had doubted his feelings, when she had wondered if the connection she felt was one-sided. What if, all along, the answer had been sitting in his hands, waiting for the courage he never found? Tears welled in her eyes. Because the hardest part wasn't knowing that the gift existed. It was realizing that she had never been given the chance to receive it. That a piece of their story had been stolen not by fate, not by the world, but by silence. And in that moment, Demet understood something she had never admitted before: she had never truly let go of Can. The truth didn't just reopen old wounds, it reignited the questions she thought she had buried. What if he had given it to her back then? Would their story have had a different ending? Or was it always destined to slip through their fingers? The answer, of course, would never be clear. But when the gift finally reached her hands, whether by accident, by a friend's confession, or perhaps by Can himself years later, she held it with trembling fingers. Inside was not something grand or extravagant, but something achingly simple: a handwritten letter, folded carefully, the ink slightly faded with time. In it, Ken had written the words he had never spoken. His fears, his hopes, his silent love for her. The letter was raw, imperfect, full of the emotions he had hidden behind smiles and laughter. And as Demet read it, she realized that the silence between them had never been emptiness. It had been a silence filled with everything left unsaid. She pressed the letter to her chest, her eyes blurred with tears. It was too late to change the past, too late to rewrite the story. But in that moment, she knew, their love had been real. It had always been real. And as the world moved on, as cameras focused on other stories and tabloids searched for other scandals, the truth of their bond remained in that gift, silent, secret, and unforgettable. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories are not the ones we live out loud, but the ones carried quietly in the heart.